Today on CityCast DC. This weekend is 420, the annual day where cannabis enthusiasts celebrate all things weed. Now, being in the shadow of the federal government means weed in DC can be tricky, and the laws around cannabis use in the city are a little complicated. Alan Amsterdam, owner of Capitol Hemp, tries to clear the smoke around getting high in DC. Today's Wednesday, April 16th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Okay, so 420 is coming up, which a lot of people might know, sort of the national weed holiday. For folks who are unfamiliar with weed, can I just go into a dispensary, buy weed, smoke it on the street here in DC? Is that allowed?
Okay, so yes. What's allowed is, at DC we have what I call quasi-legalization, meaning you can grow it, process it, give it away, not sell it legally in Washington, D.C. So you can grow your own in your own house, in your residence. We also have a medical cannabis program where people can go from all over the world as long as they are over 21. They can self-certify, so they can walk into a dispensary, a legal medical dispensary, and they immediately procure cannabis as long as they sign, saying that I need it for medical. You no longer have to go to a doctor. You can just what they call self-certify, which is pretty good. And they're using that to compete with Maryland, which went recreational. You can just walk into a dispensary over 21 and get anything. And you can smoke it in your own residence. You're not supposed to be smoking it on the street. But if you walk through Washington, D.C. these days, you're going to smell, the city's smell is basically cannabis now.
We did a whole episode about me griping about this. Listen, I love to party just like anybody else out there, but I had to get on my little Karen soapbox and complain about that. Although I do have a question for you, though. You don't have to go through the rigmarole of getting a medical test or anything like that. It's just as simple as walking in somewhere and signing a paper.
DC has went from, you had to go to a doctor, you had to pay all this money, you had to, re-up your license all the time, to a much more user-friendly version, which is now you can walk into a local cannabis dispensary that's licensed by the city, and you can now, sign a waiver saying, permission slip, and then you're in, and that's it. The gifting world, which is more on the recreational tip, where you can just walk in and kind of get things that aren't licensed by the city. And that's happening. They're trying to bring those people in. So there's all these kind of things going on right now to bring them in so they can be part of the medical cannabis dispensary program. But, you have a lot of people in DC that don't want to put their name on a piece of paper. You can't own a gun if you are a medical cannabis patient, technically. So you have issues with the federal government now. They're going to say, oh, you're a medical patient. It's a Schedule I drug. You can't have a firearm. So people that have firearms have to worry about that. So you have all kinds of these crazy issues. The reason why gifting is so popular, because a lot of people, and if you're a government worker, as you know, in DC, if you work for one agency and you want to get to another agency, you might have to get a bigger security clearance. Well, if you have a medical cannabis card, that can knock that out. There's all these crazy dynamics.
So if you're somebody who's totally new to cannabis in DC, what should you know?
I'd say for consumption purposes, always go slow and low. No matter what you're doing, you do not need to dive into this too deep. On the surface, 1 or 2 hits of something. If you're going to go edible wise, very low milligrams. 5 or less. And you can always add more, can't take it away. And I would say, what is the reason that you are using cannabis? Are you using it for energy? Are you using it for sleep? Are you using it for relaxation? Make sure you know what is my purpose? Why am I even walking into the store in the first place? What am I looking for in this experience? And then to go that way, because, there's so many different types of cannabis and they affect everybody differently. It's kind of like on the job training with this, where you figure out, am I a sativa person? Am I any person? Am I hybrid? Or do I like them all? So you're going to have to play with it. And when you're doing that, you don't want to put yourself in a position that overwhelms your body. You're like, this is too much. And I have one fix. If anybody out there ever has an issue with taking too many edibles, which we probably all had friends that have had them once in a lifetime or once or twice, you can go to your cupboard, grab a peppercorn, put it in your mouth, one peppercorn, suck on it for 10 to 15 minutes. And anybody that has that, overwhelming reaction with cannabis, it'll knock them down to, well, they'll be high, but they won't be overwhelmed anymore.
It's a good trick. I've used it. It does work.
Yeah, awesome. And ask a lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm curious, I understand that you helped co-author I-71. What was the goal behind that initiative exactly?
I mean, at the time, the goal was really my business, Capitol Hemp, which I'm here right now, got raided in 2011 by the police simply for selling, glass with 2 holes in it. These bongs behind me, they came after me.
I think you mean water pipes, no?
Right.
That's what they used to tell us to call them. Like, it would be like, they're not bongs, they're water pipes.
What you said is interesting because it goes right into Initiative 71. One of the things we wanted to change was now you can walk into a head shop and say the word bong, hash, weed. It's no longer, the nomenclature is gone now before. So that was one of the things we wanted to do. 2, we wanted to make cannabis growing legal. So home cultivation was big in my world. And I believe that you can grow the best cannabis growing it at home. The corporate cannabis people are not going to be the best. They're going to be the biggest, but they're surely not going to be the best. They spray their plants with God knows what, not all of them, most of them. And it just becomes a situation where, corporate cannabis isn't as good as, when you're at home making it yourself, you're going to care about it. You're not going to be spraying pesticides, herbicides. You want it to be clean cannabis. And so that was one of the things we want to do. And then with that, people took this gifting thing because we put in there, you could grow it yourself and I could gift it to you. Just like a grandmother would come and say, have some of my apple pie from my apple tree that I cut the apples down and they made apple pie here. That was our intentions. Now, what everybody took it to was a whole nother level. People were like, okay, we're going to take this gifting thing and we're going to make it recreational. We're going to just, go for broke. And look, we didn't intend that way, but look, they got the baton. They took it where they wanted to take it and so be it. I'm not hating on it, but we never intended it to be like that.
The brand new Arbor at Tacoma is built for your most convenient urban living. Whether you want to enjoy the vibrant Tacoma, DC community or comfortably retreat into a sleek sanctuary all your own. The kitchens have striking dark navy and white cabinets, and throughout the home, there are wood floors and smart home technology. Some homes even have a private outdoor space. With a quick walk to the metro, you can easily head into downtown or stay close and enjoy the retail that's on site. Located at 218 Cedar Street Northwest, the Arbor Tacoma offers brand new 1- and 2-bedroom condos starting in the upper 300,000s. Visit thearborattacoma.com for more information. That's Tacoma with a K, so TheArborattacoma.com.
Let's be real. Lawsuits are not fun. But with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. The 2 partners, Chris and Matt Nace, were both born here and are local leaders who care deeply about the DC community. Paulson & Nace handles medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases when someone has been hurt by the negligence of others. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So, if you have been hurt or have lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com or call 202-463-1999.
I'm curious, what do you think has become of the initiative today in 2024?
Most people have decided to become, smugglers. I don't like using that word, but it's what it is. I was hoping that everyone was going to get onto the growing tip. And there are a lot of people, I have really good friends. DC Sprague's one of them. A couple others that are really good breeders and growers in this town that are kick-ass and take names. But most people said, you know what, I'm just going to go to California, get the cheap stuff, come back here, swing it through my shops or my friend's shops or whatever. And that kind of wasn't what we expected, but that's where we are. But a lot of people that were smart learned how to grow during this time because it was legal. And the whole point was to get this skill set. If you want to go to the next level and you want to be fully in the cannabis world, learning how to grow, working with that plant is just as important as any other aspect, even more so in my opinion. The initiative was going to really get people in. And there are people that took advantage. There's plenty. I'm not knocking it, but most people didn't.
Well, if you're somebody who maybe doesn't think of yourself as having a green thumb or isn't somebody who's going to be growing your own, even though I agree, the idea of growing your own is great. I feel like just like anything else, there are probably good shops and bad shops, people who really care about their product and really care about their clients and their customers and the experience, and people who are just trying to make money. In your mind, like, what separates a good shop from a bad shop?
Well, until we have testing, it's really going to be difficult to tell, because testing is going to tell everything. You have your cannabis and you see on the back of it, you have these certificate of analysis, COAs, and it tells you everything, what's going on. DC in general has no testing. We're like so behind. I mean, we're the capital of the United States and we can't even test our cannabis properly. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that's medical and recreational. So I think until we get that, it's very difficult. Now, what I would say is that there are shops that are dealing with local growers, some Virginia, some Maryland, organic regenerative farms, and local people. They do the best job. And so if you go to shops that have local, I think that's where it's at. The whole point of being legal now is I want to know what's in my cannabis. Just like when you walk into Safeway and you look at the back of something and said it has this many grams of fat or whatever, okay, they're telling me what's going on. We don't know that. And so that's the problem.
So for someone listening who wants to partake for 420, but maybe they don't really know the scene very well, like, where's a good place to be either, I guess I'll just say, obtain weed at this point? Like, buy it, gift it. Where should they get started?
The medical dispensaries are obviously the first place I would suggest. You could just go self-certify. If you don't want to self-certify, there are gifting shops. And I would just, simply Google and follow reviews. I think without testing, we really don't have any good knowledge about what is good and what is bad out there other than consumers. So I would look right now to the other consumers and see. And if some place has a lot of reviews and people feel comfortable about what they're buying there and they're going back and they're repeat customers. And also my business, Capitol Hemp, everything here is third-party verified. We make sure that anything that comes in here is going to be quality products. It's really important to have that. And what I mean by third-party verified is that, on the QR codes in the back, that's a legitimate testing lab that is looking at all their stuff, that's making sure everything's, kosher. And that's probably the best thing they can do, is find stores that do have third-party tested, verified products.
What about this National Cannabis Festival? What's going on there?
National Cannabis Festival is one of the largest cannabis festivals on the East Coast. I'm a judge this year for the festival, so I judged the DC cannabis cultivars that were entered into the competition. So really excited. I think Maryland's entered, Virginia entered, but it's going to be very interesting. Wu-Tang Clan is going to be headlining it. They have advocacy, education, plenty of consumption. It's at RFK grounds in DC. It's just a great environment. And I think that's the place to be for 420. And it's a 2-day festival. So it's the 19th and the 20th. And then also there is protests going on in the White House Wednesday. And that's going to be a real big thing. Last Prisoner Project, they're a big advocacy organization trying to get people out of jail that are in jail for cannabis right now. While everyone's getting licenses and we're all basking in the glory of this cannabis stuff, there's people that are dwindling, sitting there for cannabis crimes while corporate cannabis is trying to take over the whole industry. And it's really sad and depressing. So there's a big protest before the whole 420 stuff going on. And that's another good event where if you want to meet advocacy people, there's going to be a lot of people, as I would call famous in the cannabis industry, that are going to be protesting there. Sometimes people feel protests don't work. If you do it a lot, you start realizing the amount of people you meet, and the group gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they go back to St. Louis or Texas or whatever, and they take that advocacy with them. That's what we need. And you get people empowered in DC to do these events, and they go back to their towns and they have the same type of energy. And that's how the grassroots builds up.
Absolutely. And, I think it's such an exciting, interesting time for marijuana legislation and weed culture in DC. But I'm curious, what do you see as the future of weed markets here in DC?
The cannabis market in DC is going through some significant changes. As they're moving the gifters into the regular world. They're adding a whole bunch of social equity licenses as well, cultivation, manufacturing. It's a very small medical market. We need President Biden to hopefully deschedule cannabis. By descheduling cannabis puts us in a recreational market. DC can propel itself to the next level and start competing with Maryland and Virginia, who's going to come on board in 2 years. But right now we're in a kind of a transitional moment here, and hopefully things will go well. We don't have enough cultivation to handle all the new retailers that are moving from the gifting and the social equity world into this medical cannabis space. So we'll see what happens. I think we have a rough patch of road ahead of us before we see the light, so to speak. So we'll see how we get. It'll be a bumpy road, but it'll be exciting.
Well, Alan Amsterdam, thank you so much for being here. I will see you at the Cannabis Festival.
Okay, cheers.
That's that's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, share it with your favorite weed enthusiast. You can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.